Bears fans, welcome back to another video on the island. I appreciate you tuning in, and today we're going to be talking about what do we have to do to keep Allen Robinson in a Bears uniform. You know, after that win against the Houston Texans, first off, it's been so long since we've been able to enjoy a win, so the players haven't been necessarily showing signs of happiness, but you know, just seeing Allen Robinson and Mitch Trubisky dapping each other up, laughing, just having a good time on the field, and you know, just enjoying to play football again. And you know, Allen Robinson hit that milestone of back-to-back 1,000-yard season, which is only the fifth Bears wide receiver to do that. You know, you had Curtis Conway, Marty Booker, Brandon Marshall, and Alshon Jeffrey, and those are the only other four. And those last two, Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey, are pretty important to figure out how their time in Chicago came to an end. But, you know, to go back to Allen Robinson, we haven't had a contract negotiation with him since week 2. And the whole problem with it is Allen Robinson doesn't feel like he's getting market value. And Pace doesn't want to fork up the money to pay him. And so, you know, so what do we do in this situation? You have a GM who doesn't want to fork up the money, and you have a player who wants to get paid. And, you know, money always comes down to the root of things, but I think one thing we need to look at is Brian Pace's history and his track record with just wide receivers. You know, not to get into any other position, but just the wide receiving core. How has he evaluated since his time in Chicago has started? And you know, he did the same thing if you look at Alshon Jeffrey's situation. He was in Chicago for 5 years, was a back-to-back 1,000-yard receiver during his time in Chicago, and Pace didn't want to pay him. So he took a 1-year deal in Philadelphia, and what happened? He won a Super Bowl, guys. So there's his first just whiff, okay? Letting go of a guy who we drafted, developed, and had success and wanted to be in Chicago. Pace was the reason why we couldn't get a contract done, okay? And after he left, there was no one to replace him. I mean, the receiver we had was Kendall Wright. You guys remember him? He was the only bright spot in that wide receiving core outside of Cameron Meredith. And then when Cameron Meredith went down, it was pretty much just him, Kendall Wright. But you know, you just look at kind of what's happening right now with Allen Robinson, and if Allen Robinson were to leave, who would take over? Anthony Miller hasn't had enough success to be considered a wide receiver 1. We haven't played Javon Wims, and we haven't played Riley Ridley. So what's the difference between if we let a wide receiver 1 go now than it was 4 years ago when we let go of our wide receiver 1, Alshon Jeffrey? Also, another thing to look at, and I know the Brandon Marshall situation got it was more a little in the locker room type of thing as opposed to on the field play, because Brandon Marshall he was a baller. You can't really deny it. You know, obviously he did some off the field stuff, some things just made you scratch your head, but so I can't really give Pace as much crap about that. The thing I will give him crap about is he only got a 5th round pick in return for him, so I really don't like how he handled that. I think that just shows that he didn't understand the value that Brandon Marshall really could bring to a team. And so this brings us to, what do we do? You know, how should we handle the situation? And I say we need to fire Pace, because I think his time is done. I'm sick of him having just kind of holding us back from being great. Has he helped? Yes, but he's not going to be the guy to get us to that promised land, I don't think. And so my personal thing would be to fire him, but we know that may not happen. We've heard rumors that him and I could actually have another year, which is just really saddening in my eyes. But I think, you know, a second level to what we could do is just remove him from contract negotiations. I mean, if A-Rob and Ryan Pace can't see eye to eye, and those are the only two parties who are really looking at this negotiation, at this point, Allen Robinson's not going to be a Chicago Bear. And you look at how Pace handled the Alshon Jeffrey situation, how he dealt Brandon Marshall when he could have gotten more. I mean, he was traded to the New York Jets. It turned out to be Adrian Amos, but you could definitely get a few more draft picks than just that for Brandon Marshall, who was a back-to-back 1,000-yard receiver. And so, you know, Pace has shown he can't draft or develop wide receivers. You look at Kevin White, you look at Javon Wims, you look at Anthony Miller, you look at Riley Ridley. No success, okay? And, you know, you could say that's the coach trying to develop them, but either way, he still drafted them to think that they could fit inside of Nagy's system, and they haven't. He thought Kevin White could fit inside of John Fox's system because he was a physical freak, and he was at the time, but it didn't work. And it's just, you have this track record of Pace of butchering these wide receiver negotiations, and especially if we want to get a quarterback, why are we going to let go of our number one wide receiver that's been a cornerstone of turning this franchise around, or was in 2018, and has been a key foundational piece in holding this franchise together? So, I mean, at this point, I think someone needs to take over those contract negotiations with Allen Robinson. People, like, higher up than the GM, need to realize we want this guy on our team. And he's produced. He's been through it. He's been through successful seasons. He's been through bad seasons. He's been through seasons like this where we're fighting for a playoff spot, and he hasn't given up. And I think we just need to get Pace out of there, get a new face in there, make Allen Robinson feel better. Because right now, obviously, he doesn't think Pace wants him on the team. If he did, they'd be having negotiations, and the last negotiation wouldn't have been almost 3 months ago. 3 months ago. So it's a tough situation, but I think Pace needs to swallow his pride. And if he does, Allen Robinson would love to be in a Chicago Bears uniform. And the other thing is, if there's anyone we're going to pay on the offensive side of the ball, pay Allen Robinson, and then pay the offensive line to get new pieces on the offensive line in free agency, or invest in the draft. But it just doesn't make sense to get rid of our wide receiver one when we could have a quarterback change, and we're trying to maintain an offense that has already struggled to begin with. And now that it's finally picking back up, you can see Allen Robinson is such an intricate part of this offense, and he's such a great weapon for Mitch, and was successful with Nick Foles. He was successful with Mitch. He's a great wide receiver, and the Bears need to keep him, and Ryan Pace needs to swallow his pride and get a contract done with Allen Robinson. So I hope you guys enjoyed my take on this situation. Let me know if you agree with me, disagree with me. Leave a comment and you have another video idea. I would love to hear it. And I appreciate you guys just tuning in for another video on the island. I'll be back soon with another take on the Vikings game this week and just giving my prediction for that. But I hope all you guys have a great rest of your day, and hope to tune in next time. Doses!